Hello students, good evening. So today is another session of accounting ratios and this is the third session of accounting ratios. आप लोगों ने सेशन 1 लिक्विडिटी रेशियो पे, सेशन 2 सॉल्वेंसी रेशियो पे एंड उसके कंटिन्यूएशन में आज हम अकाउंटिंग रेशियोज के थर्ड सेशन के साथ ये एक्टिविटी रेशियोज के ऊपर होने वाला है. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट विदाउट एनी डिले. सो एक्टिविटी रेशियोज के ऊपर आज हम बात करने वाले हैं, राइट. सो एक्टिविटी रेशियो, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि एक्टिविटी रेशियो क्या होता है, क्योंकि आपको बताया हुआ है कि ये मैनेजमेंट अकाउंटिंग का सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट टूल है जो अकाउंटिंग रेशियो जिसको हम बोलते हैं. तो एवरी रेशियो हैज समथिंग टू से, राइट. सो एक्टिविटी रेशियो की मैं बात करूं तो एक्टिविटी रेशियो आर यूज्ड टू डिटरमाइन द एफिशिएंसी, of the organization in utilizing its assets for generating cash and revenue. It is used to check the level of investment made on an assets and revenue that is generating from it. For this reason, the activity ratio is also known as the efficiency ratio. So, other name of activity ratio is efficiency ratio. We can also call it turnover ratio. The role of activity ratio or turnover ratio is in the evaluation of the efficiency of a business by a careful analysis of the inventories and fixed assets or accounts receivable. तो इसके बारे में हम आज बात करने वाले हैं. Now types of activity ratio. So there are 6 types of activity ratio. Inventory turnover ratio. Second one is trade receivable turnover ratio, or we can also call it accounts receivable turnover ratio. Third one is trade payable turnover ratio, or we can also call it accounts payable turnover ratio. Working capital turnover ratio, and recently CBSE has added 2 more ratio, that is net asset turnover ratio or fixed asset turnover ratio. Now what is a stock turnover ratio? By name it's clear, stock turnover ratio. We can also call it inventory turnover ratio. So this is one of the most important turnover ratio which highlights the relationship between the inventory or stock in the business and the cost of goods sold. What is significance? इसका significance क्या है? A high stock turnover ratio is indicative of fast moving goods in a company, while a low stock turnover ratio indicates that goods are not getting sold and are being stored at a warehouse for an extended period of time. ये सिग्निफिकेंस बहुत हेल्पफुल होंगे. सपोज आपके क्वेश्चन जो आते हैं वो 1 मार्कर हैं या आपके एग्जाम में वाइवा के टाइम में आपसे पूछा जाता है, तो ये सिग्निफिकेंस के क्वेश्चन के बेसिस पे ही आपको आंसर करना होता है. So basically inventory turnover ratio is establishing the relation between the inventory और cost of revenue from operation. Cost of goods sold को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Cost of revenue from operation बोलते हैं. Formula क्या होता है? Stock turnover ratio, we can also call it inventory turnover ratio. So the formula is cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold as per the latest amendment जो हम कंपनीज एक्ट में देखते हैं, तो उसमें कंपनीज का जब हम इनकम स्टेटमेंट बनाते हैं तो उसको हम कॉस्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन बोलते हैं. क्लास 11th में जब आपने फाइनल कॉस्ट अकाउंट करा होगा तो इसको हम कॉस्ट ऑफ गुड्स सोल्ड बोलते थे. सेम थिंग. सो कॉस्ट ऑफ गुड्स सोल्ड अपॉन एवरेज इन्वेंट्री. कॉस्ट ऑफ गुड्स सोल्ड और वी कैन आल्सो कॉल इट कॉस्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन. हाउ टू कैलकुलेट दिस? सो रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन में आप ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट को माइनस कर देंगे तो आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन आ जाएगा, या रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन में इफ देयर इज एनी ग्रॉस लॉस इसको ऐड बैक कर लेंगे तभी आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन आ जाएगा. नेक्स्ट वन इज जो हम क्लास 11th में हमने जो फॉर्मूले यूज करे थे उसके हिसाब से ओपनिंग स्टॉक, नेट परचेजेस. नेट परचेज जब भी मैं बोलता हूं तो इट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन टोटल परचेजेस एंड माइनस परचेजेस रिटर्न. डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस माइनस क्लोजिंग स्टॉक. एज पर द लेटेस्ट थिंग, सो कॉस्ट ऑफ मटेरियल कंज्यूम प्लस परचेज ऑफ स्टॉक इन ट्रेड प्लस डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस. डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस मैंने मेंशन कर दिया, ओनली दोज एक्सपेंसेस व्हिच आर रिलेटेड विद द फैक्ट्री, लाइक वेजेस पेड हो गया, कैरेज इनवर्ड हो गया, फैक्ट्री फ्यूल एंड पावर हो गया, ये सब. चेंज ऑफ इन्वेंट्रीज. सो व्हेन आई से चेंज ऑफ इन्वेंट्रीज इट सिंपली मींस दैट एक्सेस ऑफ ओपनिंग इन्वेंट्री ओवर द क्लोजिंग इन्वेंट्री, इसका डिफरेंस. कभी कभी क्या होता है कि आपका नेगेटिव में वैल्यू गिवन होता है, आपकी इन्वेंट्रीज के नेगेटिव में वैल्यू गिवन होती है, चेंज ऑफ इन्वेंट्रीज की नेगेटिव में वैल्यू गिवन होती है. व्हाट डज इट मीन? इट मींस दैट क्लोजिंग इन्वेंट्री इज एक्सीडिंग योर ओपनिंग इन्वेंट्री. लेकिन वैल्यू पॉजिटिव में होगी, इसका मतलब क्या होगा? ओपनिंग इन्वेंट्री इज एक्सीडिंग योर क्लोजिंग इन्वेंट्री. एक एग्जाम्पल मैंने ले लिया बड़ा सिंपल सा, कंसिडरिंग द फॉलोइंग ऑफ अ कंपनी एबीसी लिमिटेड, कॉस्ट ऑफ गुड सोल्ड 5 लाख रुपीस का है, बिगिनिंग इन्वेंट्री मतलब दिस इज कॉल्ड इन्वेंट्री इन द बिगिनिंग, और इन्वेंट्री एट द एंड आपके पास इंफॉर्मेशन में गिवन है। सो इन्वेंट्री टर्नओवर रेशियो का फॉर्मूला आप लगा लीजिए, तो इसका फॉर्मूला होता है कॉस्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन, जिसको मैं शॉर्ट फॉर्म में यहां कॉर्फो लिख रहा हूं, कॉस्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन अपॉन एवरेज इन्वेंट्री। एवरेज इन्वेंट्री निकालने के लिए बहुत सिंपल है, एवरेज इन्वेंट्री इक्वल्स टू ओपनिंग इन्वेंट्री प्लस क्लोजिंग इन्वेंट्री डिवाइड बाय 2। ओपनिंग इन्वेंट्री वी हैव 1,55,000, closing inventory we have 2,45,000 divide by 2. So it simply means that 155 plus 245 makes 4 lakh divided by 2. So it should be how much? 2 lakh rupees. This is your average inventory, and cost of revenue from operation is already given in the question, and that is 5 lakh. So 5 lakh upon average inventory of rupees 2 lakh, just now we have calculated. So it is 2.5 times. The answer is 2.5 times. I hope you understand. Very simple question. Next one is trade receivable turnover ratio. So first of all, we need to understand what is trade receivable turnover ratio. So it is again a very important indicator of a company, which shows how well a company is able to provide credit facilities to its customer, and at the same time is also able to recover the due amount within the payment period. A higher ratio indicates that credit policy of the company is sound, while a lower ratio shows a weak credit पॉलिसी। सो बेसिकली ये सिग्निफिकेंस है, जहां आप डिसीजन मेकिंग करने के लिए ये सिग्निफिकेंस के बेसिस पे आप डिसीजन मेकिंग करते हैं, राइट? क्योंकि जैसे मैंने बताया ये मैनेजमेंट अकाउंटिंग का पार्ट है, तो मैनेजमेंट अकाउंटिंग में हर टाइम डिसीजन, कंपनी की डिसीजन के लिए हम वर्क करते हैं, कंपनी की डिसीजन बनाते हैं, राइट? सो दीज आर द सम सिग्निफिकेंसेस, दीज आर द समथिंग रिमार्क के बेसिस पे आप यूज कर सकते हो कि कंपनी का हायर है क्रेडिट पॉलिसी या लोअर है। सो आप उसमें डिसाइड कर सकते हो कि हायर है तो वो कंपनी के लिए बेटर है, और नहीं है तो लोअर है, तो इसका मतलब है कि कंपनी की क्रेडिट पॉलिसी इज नॉट अप टू द मार्क, राइट? तो ये भी हमें समझना जरूरी है। अब नाउ ट्रेड रिसीवेबल टर्नओवर रेशियो। ट्रेड रिसीवेबल का मतलब आपको ऑलरेडी पता होगा, whenever I am talking about the trade receivable, so basically I am talking about the debtors and bills receivable, right? So इसमें trade receivable turnover ratio का मतलब ये है कि what is the relation of trade receivable with the net credit revenue from operation. Why net credit revenue from operation? क्योंकि जब आप क्रेडिट में सेल्स करते हो तो बेसिकली या तो डेटर को करते हो, तो डेटर यू आर एक्सपेक्टिंग द पेमेंट टू बी रिकवर फ्रॉम डेटर्स, और डेटर सम टाइम कैन ऑफर यू अ बिल ऑफ एक्सचेंज ऑल्सो, जिसको हम बिल्स रिसीवेबल भी बोलते हैं। एंड कंबाइनली डेटर्स और बिल्स रिसीवेबल को हम बेसिकली यहां ट्रेड रिसीवेबल के टर्म में यूज करते हैं। आपने बैलेंस शीट में पढ़ा होगा, इसको हम ट्रेड रिसीवेबल ही बोलते हैं। So how to calculate the net credit revenue from operation? So basically revenue from operation में, when I say revenue from operation, it means total revenue from operation, which includes the cash revenue from operation as well as the credit revenue from operation. So total revenue from operation में, if you could subtract the cash revenue from operation, so it will give you the credit revenue from operation. But what we are looking for? We are looking for net credit revenue from operation. So suppose if any sales return is also there, and if you could subtract it from there, so you'll come to know about the net credit revenue from operation. Credit revenue from operation will give you the gross information. And suppose if sales return is given, so that sales return need to be subtracted in order to understand the net credit revenue from operation. Cost of revenue from operation plus gross profit will also give the same. Cost of revenue from operation minus gross loss. Here I assume that when cost of revenue from operation, so company is only dealing with the credit transaction, so then it can be happen. Now average trade receivable means opening trade receivable plus closing trade receivable divided by 2. Opening trade receivable means opening debtors plus opening bills receivable. प्लस क्लोजिंग डेटर्स प्लस क्लोजिंग बिल्स रिसीवेबल डिवाइड बाय 2, राइट। तो वो आपका ये एवरेज आ जाएगा। एवरेज कलेक्शन पीरियड, इसमें हमें डिसाइड करना पड़ता है कि व्हाट इज द कलेक्शन पीरियड। यहां हम बात कर रहे थे पिछले स्लाइड में, देखो क्रेडिट पॉलिसी की बात कर रहे हैं, तो बेसिकली इट इज वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द कलेक्शन पीरियड। इसी से हम क्रेडिट पॉलिसी बनाते हैं। सो कलेक्शन पीरियड के लिए द फॉर्मूला इज 365 डेज अपॉन ट्रेड रिसीवेबल टर्नओवर रेशियो। डिपेंड करता है, सपोज आप ईयरली बेसिस पे निकाल रहे हो तो 365 डेज अपॉन ट्रेड रिसीवेबल टर्नओवर रेशियो होता है। कहीं कहीं बुक्स में देखोगे 12 मंथ्स डिवाइड बाय ट्रेड रिसीवेबल टर्नओवर रेशियो, मंथली जहां कैलकुलेशन होती है। जहां वीकली की बेसिस पे कैलकुलेशन होती है तो देयर आर 52 वीक्स इन ईयर, सो 52 वीक्स डिवाइड बाय ट्रेड रिसीवेबल टर्नओवर रेशियो भी आप कर सकते हो, लेकिन मोर लाइकली इट शुड बी 365 अपॉन ट्रेड रिसीवेबल टर्नओवर रेशियो। Now I have taken a question that ABC Limited has a beginning account receivable balance of 2,50,000. So this is your trade receivable opening wala part. And ending account bills receivable, ending account matlab closing account receivable of rupees 3,20,000. The total credit sales for the year was rupees 5 lakh, while returns amounted to rupees 30,000. Find the accounts receivable turnover ratio. So what is the formula for account receivable turnover ratio? So the formula is account receivable turnover ratio. Turnover ratio. So the formula is net credit revenue from operation net credit revenue from operation upon average trade receivable. Net credit revenue from operation upon average trade receivable, right? So net credit revenue from operation क्या है ये समझते हैं। बहुत सिंपल है, आपके पास टोटल क्रेडिट सेल्स दिया हुआ है 5 लाख का, एंड उसमें से रिटर्न 30,000 का माइनस कर दो तो you'll come to know about the net credit revenue from operation. So here I can write net credit revenue from operation. I can use the short form net credit revenue from operation, RFO, revenue from operation. So equals to credit revenue from operation, credit revenue from operation minus sales return, minus returns, or we can also call it sales return. So credit revenue from operation is 5 lakh or sales return is of 30,000. So 4,70,000 is your net credit revenue from operation. All right. Now we need to find the average trade receivable. So we are having an availability of opening trade receivable and we are having a closing trade receivable also. So opening plus closing divided by 2. So here I can do the working note for the same. So average receivable. So opening is 2,50,000, closing is 3,20,000 divide by 2. So 250 plus 320 will give you how much? 5,70,000, and 5,70,000 divide by 2. So it should be 2,85,000. All right. So net credit revenue from operation here is, just now we have calculated, that is 4,70,000, and average trade receivable is 2,85,000. So I'll just calculate this using calculator. So it should be 4,70,000 divided by 2,85,000. So your answer is 1.649 times. If you could calculate like this, I am using the calculator, I have used the calculator for the same. So 4,70,000 upon 285, so it should be 1.64 times. 1.64 times. All right. Next one is creditors turnover ratio. So creditor turnover ratio is the measure of the capability of the company to pay off the amount for credit purchases successfully in an accounting period. A high ratio is indicative that a company is able to finance all the credit purchases and vice versa, right? So now what is the formula for the same? So trade payable turnover ratio, the formula is quite simple, net credit purchases upon average account payable. Now how can you calculate the net credit purchases? It's really simple. When I am talking about the purchases, so it is a total purchase which includes the cash purchase as well as the credit purchases. So total purchases or maybe purchases minus cash purchases minus purchases return. The other name of purchase return is returns outward. So if you could subtract it from the total purchases, then you will come to know about the net credit purchases. And it is divided by average trade payable. So trade payable is being classified into two categories. They are creditors and bills payable. So opening creditors plus opening bills payable plus closing creditors plus closing bills payable divide by 2. Or you can say opening trade payables plus closing trade payables divide by 2 will give you the average trade payable. Now average payable period, like in the previous ratio, we have calculated average collection period. So the formula was 365 days upon trade receivable turnover ratio. In the similar manner, average payable period can be calculated in the same way, 365 days divided by trade payable turnover ratio. Now let's have one question for the same. So trade payable turnover ratio from the following, right? So here they have given credit purchases during the year was rupees 6,20,000. Purchases returned was 20,000. Opening creditors rupees 1 lakh. Opening creditors is, this is opening creditors. Opening creditors is rupees 1 lakh. Closing creditors is 1,40,000. Okay, and opening bills payable is 25,000 and closing bills payable is 35,000. Okay, so first of all I'll just write the formula and then I can find the values. So what is the formula for the same? So basically here we are calculating trade payable turnover ratio. Okay, so trade payable turnover ratio. So the formula is net credit purchases upon average account payable. And as I mentioned that whenever I say account payable, it means creditors and bills payable. It is all about creditors and bills payable. So let's find out this. First of all, I like to find the net credit purchases. And the information are given here. So basically we have the credit purchases and we have the return also. So credit purchases minus purchases return, if you could do, so you will be able to find out net credit purchases. Okay, so basically here they have given you net credit purchases of 6,20,000. So 6,20,000 would be your net credit purchases and purchases return is here 20,000. So basically your net credit purchases would be 6 lakh rupees. All right, and now here is the turn to find the average trade payable. So what is the formula for the same? As I mentioned, opening trade payable plus closing trade payable divide by 2. When I say opening trade payable, it means that opening creditors plus opening bills payable plus closing creditors plus closing bills payable divide by 2, right? So they have given you all the information. Here opening creditors is 1 lakh, okay, and closing creditor is 1,40,000. So opening creditors and closing creditors are given. 1 lakh of opening creditors and closing creditors is 1,40,000. Opening bills payable is 25,000 and closing bills payable is 35,000. There is a little, silly this error, 20,000, and this is O is for opening creditors. So here from here you can only consider this 20,000 and this O is for opening creditors. Similarly here also this O for the opening bills payable, right? So 1 lakh plus 1,40,000 plus 25,000 plus 35,000 divide by 2. So 1 lakh plus 140 will give you 240, 240 plus 25 will give you 265 plus 35 will give you 3 lakh. So simply 3 lakh divided by 2 will give you how much? 1,50,000. 240 plus 25, 265 plus 35 will give you 3 lakh divided by 2 will give you 1,50,000. 50,000. So now we are having the availability of net credit purchases, and at the same time we are having an availability of average trade payable. So it's really simple now. So this should be 6 lakh of net credit purchase, and average account payable stand for 1,50,000. So simply we can solve. So this answer would be 4 times. The answer should be 4 times. I hope you understand. So moving to the next ratios, working capital turnover ratio. Working capital ratio. So whenever I'm just talking about the working capital ratio, so one thing comes in your mind that there is the difference between the current assets minus current liabilities will give you the working capital. I'm sure this will comes in your mind in a first thing. So this ratio is helpful in determining the effectiveness with which the company is able to utilize working capital. So whenever I say working capital, so definitely current assets and current liabilities for generating sales of its goods. If a company has a higher level of working capital, again this significance, if a company has a higher level of working capital, it shows that working capital of the business is utilized properly. And on the other hand, a low working capital suggests that the business has too many debtors and the inventory is unused. Okay, so this is very helpful. Significance is very helpful for you. Now, what is the formula for working capital? I'm sure you understand this. Cost of revenue from operation or revenue from operation. Now, this is a cost of revenue from operation when I'm talking about. So, this is your cost of goods sold, and revenue from operation. So, this is your actually sales. So, sometime the calculation is being done on the basis of cost of revenue from operation, and sometimes the calculation is based on the revenue from operation. The preference, suppose cost of revenue from operation or revenue from operation, both are given, where cost of revenue from operation is represented by your cost of goods sold and revenue from operation is represented by the sales. So all the calculation has to be done by taking cost of revenue from operation as a base, but sometime cost of revenue from operation is not given in the question and revenue from operation is given. So at that point of time we can take the help of revenue from operation. So that is the reason why I have given you both the formula, either the cost of revenue from operation or revenue from operation, but the priority number 1 is cost of revenue from operation, right, upon working capital. When I say working capital, I have already made it clear that this is the difference between the current assets minus current liabilities. Now I have selected a question on this. So here the question is, the sales is 5 lakh, sales return is 80,000. They have given you enough information for the same. So now while calculating the working capital, first of all we need to write the formula for the same. So here we are going working capital turnover ratio. Okay, so the formula is, I am using the short form, the formula is CORFO upon working capital. When I say CORFO, it simply means that cost of revenue from operation upon working capital. Now how to calculate the CORFO? So this must be shown in your working notes. So it's really simple. Working note is, so in order to understand the CORFO, so basically just now I have mentioned you that either the CORFO or revenue from operation. See, CORFO or revenue from operation. So in this question basically the revenue from operation is given, cost of revenue from operation is not given in the question. So we can take the help of revenue from operation. So basically here is in order to understand the net revenue from operation, what I can do is sales minus sales return will give you the net sales. Net sales, or we can also call it net revenue from operation, RFO, net revenue from operation. So here they have given you the sales of 5 lakh and sales return is of rupees 80,000. Then the difference would be 4,20,000, and yes, this is the true value of your net revenue from operation. Now, in order to calculate the working capital, the formula is current assets minus current liabilities. So current assets CA minus CL. So here the current asset is of rupees 1 lakh and current liabilities is of rupees 40,000. So the difference would be 60,000, and yes, this is your working capital. So we got to know about the revenue from operation, net revenue from operation and working capital. So here I can use the formula CORFO oblique revenue from operation, right? So since CORFO is not given, so I can take the help of revenue from operation, and here revenue from operation is of rupees 4,20,000, just now we have calculated, and working capital is 60,000. So the answer would be 7 times. The answer would be 7 times. I hope you understand this. Okay. So now moving to the next ratio. Net asset turnover ratio, or we can also call it capital employed turnover ratio. It reflects the relationship between the net revenue from operation and net assets. Net revenue from operation and net assets or capital employed in the business. Higher turnover ratio means better activity and profitability, right? So net asset turnover ratio or capital asset turnover ratio, the formula is net revenue from operation upon capital employed or net assets. Whenever I am talking about the net assets, it's real simple. The total value of your net total assets, or suppose if depreciation is given, so we need to subtract the value of depreciation. When in debtors, suppose provision for bad and doubtful debts is given, so that provision for bad and doubtful debts is subtracted from the debtors in order to find the true value of net debtors, right? So here the formula is net assets. It means depreciation from the fixed assets, and if any provision for bad and doubtful debts is given, so that's need to be subtracted from the debtors. After subtracting PBDD, PBDD stand for provision for bad and doubtful debts from debtors, you get the exact or actual value of the debtors. So net means that. Upon capital employed, so capital employed can be calculated by the way of two, right? One is the asset side approach and another one is the liability side approach. I have already explained while teaching you the solvency ratio, right? Now what is the significance? Higher turnover of net assets or capital employed is good sign and implies efficient utilization of resources, resulting in higher liquidity and profitability in the business, right? Now moving to the last ratio, that is fixed asset turnover ratio. It reflects relationship between net revenue from operation and net fixed assets of the business or the business. Higher turnover ratio means better activity and profitability ratio. The formula is net revenue from operation upon the net fixed assets. There we can use the capital employed also in place of net assets, and here categorically we have to write net fixed assets. Whenever I say net fixed asset, it means only the fixed assets. It doesn't mean the total assets. Total asset is different from the net fixed assets. Suppose if I am talking about the total assets, it means the total of the non-current assets plus current assets. And under the non-current assets, there are so many subheadings like fixed assets. Under fixed asset, there is a tangible or intangible assets, non-current investment, long-term loans and advances, and other long-term assets. Deferred tax asset is not being considered here. But when I am talking about the net fixed asset, so it is just the combination of tangible plus intangible. If any depreciation or amortization, depreciation need to be deducted from the tangible assets in order to calculate the value of net tangible assets, and amortization if any there, so that's need to be subtracted from the intangible assets. So net fixed asset means that. Significance: high turnover ratio of fixed asset is good sign and implies that efficient utilization of resources, resulting in higher liquidity and profitability of the business. So this fourth ratio and fifth ratio has recently added to in your syllabus. So this is very important ratio, right? And the significance of this is very important. So this is it for today. Thank you so much. Hope you have learned activity ratio in a proper way. So इस वीडियो को फिर से आप एक बार देखना, and then once you learn all the concept from here, then you can start doing the question. I'm sure you will be able to solve all the questions. So thank you so much. Take care. God bless.